Welcome to the Rabia and Sana show. We're two Desi girls reinventing cultural norms with love to make difficult conversations easier to help you take courageous steps faster.
Whether you feel like a misfit now or have been breaking the standards, this podcast is for you, for the adults, the young. Come as you be and become your authentic self as you desire. Let's go reinvent some cultural norms together.
Hello everyone, I am Rabia Paracha. I have been a rebel without a cause for most of my life until I discovered my purpose to empower women to empower themselves. And that led me down a rabbit hole to become a life coach from CTI Coactive Coaching. And today I'm a mind and life power coach who helps people break free of their limiting cultural beliefs to find the life they love and the love of their life.
Hello everyone, I am Sana. I am from New Jersey, a Pakistani American. Professionally, I work in the clinical research field. And personally, I have always had this purpose of empowering women of South Asian culture to be able to live the life that they want to live and be true to themselves instead of what the culture expects them to be. And so here I am pursuing that purpose, and I am also studying to become a life coach. Let's get started.
Hello, amazing souls. Welcome to another episode of the Rabia and Sana Show podcast, where we reinvent cultural norms to elevate our mental, emotional, and relationship well-being. I'm Rabia Paracha.
And I'm Sana Shah. On our episode today, we have Gigi Sabbat. Gigi is a motivational keynote speaker and a coach. Gigi, it is so good to get to know you recently, hearing about your story of abuse and resilience. I just can't wait to dive more deeper into that and all the great work that you have been doing so far. So welcome so much to our podcast. It's so awesome having you on here.
Thank you. Such an honor to be here today.
Gigi, you are such a multifaceted, such a motivating and inspiring woman and a role model to so many. You have overcome a lot in your life. I know that you're a survivor. So can you tell us a little bit of a backstory in terms of giving resilience, our topic for today, a little bit of context about your story as a survivor?
Yes, ma'am. So in regards to sexual assault, I was sexually assaulted when I was 8 years old by two individuals, and then again as an adult. And so mind you, when it happened as an adult, I remember just waking up and feeling numb to pain. And I said, I never want anyone to have to feel this way. And not just that, mind you, I took all the precautions to avoid this from happening again as an adult. And the fact that it did happen again, just really sitting there feeling numb to pain. And like I said, no one should have to feel that way. No one should have to go through that, whether you're a woman, a man, or however you identify, no one should have to go through it.
Absolutely. And that must have been so invasive. And, that determination of no one should have to go through it again. I'm sure that led you down a path of resilience. How did you break free from that actual event that occurred, the sexual assault that occurred, and, move forward and break free from that?
Yes, ma'am. So essentially, a prayer. My faith truly assisted me in overcoming.
What specifically did the faith do for you, Gigi? How did it help you to get over those feelings of repeat and what happened to you? The emotional abuse also comes with physical abuse. What did faith specifically do for you?
Yes, so essentially giving it to him, literally giving it to him. And so going a little bit deeper into when I was 8 years old and everything that happened, I just remember there being blood, lots of blood. And so you're young, you don't know what's going on at that point. I just said, oh my goodness, and I had blood all over my hands. And so here I am. And like I said, it's no one should have to go through that, regardless of what age you are, or however you identify, man, woman, or like I said, however you identify, no one should have to go through that.
So what you're saying is that you put your faith in God Almighty, and that helped you build the inner strength to overcome this horrific event in your life. And as an 8-year-old, that I can't imagine, it's so invasive. And I'm just so amazed at your strength and courage, because it must have been so devastating. Did you have support around you as well? Were there people who that helped you as well alongside having faith in God?
Yes, my family, my friends, and the community. And so when we talk about it again, happening as an adult, again, I'm grateful for my family, my faith, and the community and friends. But essentially, I also remember the one of the police officers, and I remember when her and I spoke, and I remember her saying, "I know how you're getting through this." She looked at me straight in the eyes. "I know how you're getting through this." I said, How do you know how I'm getting through this? What is it?" She said, "Because of what's on your neck." And at the time I had the cross on my neck.
Wow. So, Gigi, let's say from our listeners, if anyone is going through something like this, it's very tragic. You had faith, which is really great, but for others who may not have faith or may have something else that could be a breaking free kind of guide for them, what would you say to them? How can they break free?
I would say prayer. Prayer truly matters. Give it to him, because I found that when we don't give it to him, right, and we can constantly say, "Oh my goodness, how could this happen?" Or even if you start blaming yourself and you say, "Well, I should have done this, I should have done that." Number one, I was 8 years old, and number two, when it happened as an adult, mind you, again, like I said, I took all the precautions you could possibly think of. So I said, I'm not going to be hard on myself. Had I not taken precautions, then at that point I probably would have said, "Well, wait a minute now." But I took all the precautions you could possibly think of. And so I never want anyone to have to be so hard on themselves. Don't blame yourself. Continue to take precautions. I have come across other individuals who it may not happen just one time. It may have happened twice or even more. I've come across folks now who this has happened to more than once or twice. So again, continuously taking the precautions, and don't give up. Keep the faith.
So you're a motivational speaker as well, and you inspire others to have faith to overcome difficult situations. Because, like you're saying, a lot of these times these difficult situations happen to us repeatedly, and sometimes what I've noticed is sometimes unintentionally people attract what they're familiar with as well. So it causes that pattern of repetition, not in every case. And I'm not blaming anyone. This is just very subconscious underlying things that we don't even realize we're doing. So, my question to you is that ability to adapt to trauma. And was there, like, when you put yourself in that faith, did you have ups and downs? And was it a linear path in faith? Did you feel low and did you feel high? And were they moments of self, blame, just as a human experience? And I completely get where you're coming from in the faith. Was there any of that little bit of up and down along this journey?
I love it. And the question did arise, but I've learned you don't question him. You say, "Thank you, God," and you keep moving forward. And again, because of the precautions that I knew that I had taken, there was no way I could say, "Well, I have to blame you," because I was so aware of the precautions I was taking that I could not blame myself, because I knew I tried my best to protect myself. So, and again, I'm not the only one. I've come across now, and these are folks who speak publicly about this, other women and men as well, who continuously take their precautions. But I've seen cases as well where this happens. It can happen, right? It can happen. And so this is so out of your control. And so that's why when I say don't blame yourself, I mean that in a genuine way. But and not just that, but I found that if you continuously blame yourself, bash yourself, and talk to yourself negatively, "I should have done this, I could have done this," living with the regrets, and not just that, I found that you can cause yourself to stay in a deep depression, live with anxiety for the rest of your life, and it can really weigh you down.
Yeah, totally. So being kind to yourself, being compassionate to yourself, not holding yourself responsible. But Gigi, from my own experience too, I know it's really hard to get to that point where we can accept ourselves for making these kind of mistakes. Or I wouldn't even call them mistakes. I'm not really a fan of that word mistake. But what do you think? How can we get to that point of self-compassion? What are some of the things that we can do to be there for ourselves in those moments where we've been in these cycles of getting in these type of situations?
Stay still, get quiet, and pray. Prayer truly matters. So unless you take that time to really face it, you can't, can you ever really overcome? But not just that, giving it to him. Recently, we launched a book called Overcoming Heart Blocks: Inspiring Stories for Healing from Trauma. And so again, you have to face it. And what we found is that trauma is not just one factor. It's not just sexual assault. For others, it may be domestic violence, or some other or another factor. Again, in the past, I have dealt with domestic violence as well. I almost lost my life, death by strangulation, in a domestic violence relationship. And my message to your audience today is, again, don't give up and keep the faith.
So I have a follow-up question to what you're just saying, and also what you said previously about taking precautions.
Yes, ma'am.
And that self-care, I think precaution is a part of self-care and how you protect yourself from future occurrences. But there's some things we don't have control over. And then that's the distinguishing factor where you say, thank you, God, is that I didn't have control over this, but I showed up with my precautions. And this is what happened. And I know it's happening for me, not to me. And so, can you share a few of those precautions that our listeners can take that may not know what to do in that situation?
Yes, such a good question. So essentially, it had truly affected my social relationships. That's no longer the case now. And I have found that I was an introvert as well, which some will say maybe that also stemmed from what happened. We don't have that. That's not exact just yet. But here's the thing: I was an introvert, but after everything that happened, I'm now an ambivert, which is both an introvert and an extrovert. So, and here's another thing. I remember again, my book publisher, but not just that, also a pastor who said, again, you need to share your story. It may help someone. He never said that it would. He said that it may. And I remember praying, and God's like, it's all right, it's okay. And I remember saying, okay, all right, God, letting go and letting you. And literally, I have not stopped sharing since.
So sharing was one of the precautions, would you say? Is that what you're saying?
In regards to the precautions, so I would say separate. I would say those are separate. So precautions, continuously taking them. I still take them as of today, regardless of what happened. Still taking them. You still need to protect yourself, even when I'm out on my runs. Still protecting myself. And I tell folks this all the time. Look at the recent case that just happened. Look at the woman who was abducted. We saw the case of what just happened. Wasn't, but she was murdered. And so, but here's the thing. Is that her fault? Is that her fault? She went out for her run like any other day.
Right. I follow that. I'm a true crime junkie as well.
Likewise. Yeah.
I follow
Wow.
as well, and I was watching the trials. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who can be held responsible for what happens in those situations. A crime is a crime, and it's very invasive when any sexual assault or terrible abuse happens. When someone leaves a mark on you on the outside or the inside, it's very invasive. And so I think that what I greatly appreciate about you is your disposition and your solidness in your belief. And precautions when you're running, do you take I don't know if it's legal or not. Some people carry pepper spray. Some people talk to somebody while they're doing things so that they're not alone. So when you say precaution is building that inner resilience, right? And which is what this whole episode is about, that overcoming these difficult situations and terrible events that's happened to you. What do you think was the healing process to actually understand the emotional impact of one is the mental impact, the physical invasiveness, but also the emotional process of just feeling there is that human experience. What was that process for you? So that maybe that's the question. Were you sad, or did it affect you emotionally at any time?
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Throughout the entire process. And I mean, even just thinking about it still as of today. But here's the reality, giving it to him anytime I do feel those emotions. We do need to allow ourselves to feel those emotions. I don't think I've ever not felt allowed myself to feel those emotions, but I have given it to him. I'll tell you that. Not just that, but recently we launched a book called Healing and Growth, inspiring stories for massive transformation. And when we talk about healing, I truly believe everyone's healing journey is truly unique, and it should not be rushed. And I mean that in a genuine way. Healing takes time, and meet people where they are. And so case by case, meeting people where they are, listening in, not to answer, but listening in. And first and foremost, it's very, very important. And when we talk about healing, just trust the process. Trust the process. And I remember someone saying and asking me, what's it like on the other side of facing your trauma and really giving it to him? What's that? What does that feel like? And in one word, I was advised to just say it in one word, and here it is, peace. Peace.
Yeah, and that peace is so it's such a good place to be. So Gigi, you're talking about how you have gone through such an amazing journey and this emotional resilience that you embody now, as well as this physical resilience, right? Getting through the physical aspect of it. What do you think is life afterwards when we have gone through this trauma? We've done the work of a little bit of healing, but being in that position of sustaining that and not having to keep on getting those feelings back, how do you think we could pursue that journey, and how do we get to that point, and how has it been for you?
Such a great question. So again, I truly believe that we need to face it. So, and going back to the sexual assault component, as I mentioned, it was two individuals and they were brothers. One of the brothers, him and I did chat, and he was very apologetic. He was crying, and he was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." These are the words that I heard. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And so there is still another brother to speak with about this particular subject, but I've given it to God, and just letting go and letting him.
Wow, that is, I mean, you faced it. You actually spoke to the
Which was
assaulter,
very
one of
difficult.
them. Wow.
Very difficult. And here's the reality, but facing it and allowing him to just letting go and letting him and trusting him. And so I remember when the conversation happened, and just the fact that again, the he was very apologetic, but regardless of speaking to both brothers or not, I have forgiven. So the Bible says, "Father, please forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And even the individual in regards to what happened as an adult, I have forgiven. Even the individual in regards to domestic violence, I have forgiven. Again, Bible says, "Father, please forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Forgive so you move forward, and that you don't have that weighing you down as well.
Right, because forgiveness is an inner process. It's letting free, it's actually part of that breaking free from what I'm hearing from you, letting go of what happened and finding forgiveness, and but then confronting it as well, right? There's no more, like you were saying, facing it. It doesn't get any much um more facing it when until you're sitting across from the one that did it. And so in that moment as you're sitting across, did you feel the compassion?
I
Did you
did.
feel love? What does that, can you, like, it's so hard for me to understand what that is. So could you tell me what goes on inside that, evokes those emotions, evokes that compassion?
Yeah, great question. So I remember sitting there, and I just remember, okay, this conversation is actually happening. Now I must have been what? I must have been my late teens. And so here we are. This is happening now. And I said, this is really happening. This is first and foremost, I could not believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I said, all right, God, because I understand that He's in control of all things, just letting go and letting Him. And now I'm listening into this individual, and they're apologetic. They're very, very say, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And I'm listening to these words being said, and just listening. I don't think I spoke much. I just really listened, just listen, and just again, I just couldn't believe that it is happening. And as I'm recalling it now, this conversation, and just literally now, because this person is now in front of you and now they are apologizing, and you could tell that they're apologetic, and you could tell that it's genuine, because you can tell if it's genuine or not. And so at that point, what do you do? Do you forgive, or do you say, this is it? Like, no, I'm not forgiving. But again, if you're a believer, you know His words. and you forgive and you give it to him. And so that's what I've done. I don't know if I'd be the same individual I am today if I didn't do that, if I didn't give it to him.
Wow. And also the courage that you embodied to go about this and facing it, that's really commendable too, Gigi. Face it. That's I just want to underline that more. Face it, and how you got to that point of forgiveness and compassion. So what about when we forgive somebody, right, who did something like that wrong to us, but not accepting it? What do you think is the role of creating boundaries when we move past something that has happened to us in our new relationships and forgiving, right? That has happened and we've accepted and forgive, but what do we need to do as far as to set boundaries in the future for our better relationships going forward?
Yes, boundaries, like, and Henry Cloud is huge on boundaries, right? And continuously making sure that you are aware of whom you're surrounding yourself with, but not just that, making sure that again you take those precautions. And like Robbie and I were talking about earlier as well, whether it's on the runs, whether it's pepper spray or having 911 on speed dial. I have 911 on speed dial because I'm aware of what can occur, but not based off what has happened, but not just that, continuously protecting yourself. It's so important. And when we talk about the sexual assault, I just told you that I had spoken to one of the brothers and one of the other brother. We have not spoke about what happened yet, but I did see him the other day. But here I am, and yes, he was here to visit. He was here to visit someone, and so I remember seeing him, and I said, "Okay, God, he's here. The other brother we haven't spoke yet, so." Are we going to have this conversation now? He says, no, it's not the time. Right place or time, not the time. I said, not the time. But you don't question him. You say, thank you, God. And another thing, I had already forgiven him. But when you forgive fully. There's no back and forth. And so I have given it to him. So when that conversation does happen with the other brother, I will know that I have trusted God and that I have trusted his time.
Divine time. It's always divine time when these things happen organically, when two people are ready, because it does require both people to be ready to have that engagement. So you're ready, but maybe the other person isn't, and that's why it's not divine time yet. I really want to understand this better in terms of meeting the abuser and having compassion and forgiveness. There's a term I recently came across, maybe a few years ago, called trauma bonding or the Stockholm syndrome, where we sympathize with the abuser and we give them an out because they didn't know better. Or we just give them an out and we sympathize with the abuser. Because I do want to make a distinction because I truly believe that there is. What is the difference between trauma bonding and the Stockholm syndrome, where you sympathize with the abuser, and forgiveness and actually having compassion and love and moving forward?
Great question. And I truly believe every case is truly different, not just with what happened with me, but with other individuals as well. And so I truly believe that we can't handle it the same. We have to listen in first and foremost. Again, in my situation, I listened into what this person's now telling me. I really was speechless. And like I said, I could not believe that the conversation was actually taking place in regards to what happened, which was a very difficult conversation to have now. And so literally it has to be, you have to understand all factors that are going on. What are we looking at? What are we discussing? All of the factors. We cannot leave something out. We have to acknowledge everything and face it head on in every case, case by case.
One of the differences that I'm hearing from you is taking accountability and owning the wrongdoing to the person that's been abused. I think that may be one of the differences between sympathizing with the abuser versus forgiving them. Because when they take responsibility and they own it, I think the key word was when you said, I felt that he was sorry. It felt like he was genuine. It wasn't just a sorry, because words, as we all know, communication is just more than words. 90%, if not more, is nonverbal. So you felt it. And that's one of the key differences. I'm sure there are many more, but that's what I'm hearing from you. I felt it I'm sitting across from it. I'm in disbelief. I can't believe that this person is actually sorry for what they did. And they're showing up in front of me to let me know. So that full circle must have been so empowering and so liberating to what I'm hearing from you as well. Can you share a little bit about how that set you free? Did it set you free?
Oh, yes. I remember going through the emotions, allowing myself to feel those emotions. And really, it sat with me for the next few weeks. And I remember just like, oh my goodness, is this really happening? And the reality is, it's really happening. You have to just acknowledge it's happened, and that's it. And literally giving it to him and saying, okay, I understand how difficult this may be, but I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to him. And once I did that, that was it. That was it. Once I gave it to him, I was able to really see the other side. And not just that, the forgiveness component. And so, and not just that, but we have to be able to release that from ourselves. Because once, if I didn't release it, I would not be the woman I am before you today. I had to really let it go, like let it go. And when I say let it go, I mean forgive so we can move forward. Otherwise, it will weigh you down.
Gigi, so as we're talking about forgiveness, this other person, you say you forgave him before you actually had this conversation with him. So can you tell us a little bit more about how that is? How was that for you for doing this journey of forgiveness, even without feeling that compassion towards this other person?
Yes, now this was a lot more recent as well. And I remember now being knowing I'm going to be in the same room as this individual. And literally I said, all right, God, here it is. I said, this person is now in front of me, going to be in front of me. And so literally I gave it to him, but allowing myself to go through those emotions and really allowing myself to feel, but not just that understanding whose we are. We're the child of God and children of God. And so we have to be able to give it to him. And as difficult as it may be, and really understanding his timing. So although I had forgiven, understanding that, okay, it's not the time. And it's a difficult, it's not an easy conversation to have. I'm ready to face it, but you have to be able to listen into him as well. And it was very clear, it's not time. And it was further emphasized when now I'm sitting in front of this individual and you can feel the energy in the room. It's not the time. I said, there it is.
Yeah.
Confirmation. Confirmation. And I said, all right, God, listening into your direction because he's never steered me wrong.
And hearing those confirmations is a gift.
It is.
It's a gift. It's a gift to hear the confirmations that, okay, regulate your emotions, be still in the moment, don't react. You might want something from this, like, 'cause that's the human mind. Like, that's how we humans work. We want answers. We want to understand why things happen to us. And having that capacity to really say, okay, I'm not going to respond to all that's going inside me. I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to put my faith in God. I'm going to allow myself to be more patient and let it happen versus force it to happen. And you remind me of something that happened to me, and this has just come up as you were talking. There was a moment in my life, and I have my story, which we're not going to get into, but I was holding on to a lot of pain and I wasn't forgiving. But I was in the process of forgiving. So I wanted to forgive. I declared that I want to forgive this person. And finally, we were together face to face. And I've met this person numerous times because they're a part of my life, close circle. And I met this person and we're sitting across and I started asking questions. Not quite like you. I started asking questions like, why did you do it? What was the reason? And the answers I got were backed with justification, and all sorts of things that didn't make me feel better. But I knew that forgiveness for me was also the right path, that they didn't know better, they couldn't do better, but that doesn't mean I have to hold on because I was done with holding on to the pain. So I left that situation, got in my car, and the first thing I said is, I forgive. And I said it out loud, I forgive. I forgive. And the drive from where I was to my home was about a 5 to 10 minute drive. And I was crying. I was crying in profusely crying, and I could feel the pain leaving me. And so I get to my home, I drive in, and I get a text message from the same person because I did have the opportunity to express myself to this person. And as I got to um, my home and I opened my phone and I saw, I am so sorry that I hurt you. All these years, that's all I wanted to hear. Not the justification, not the why, and nowhere by any means are our situations comparable. That physical invasion of a human being is totally not the same. But I was just trying to point out that I had said I forgive, and then the divine timing happened, and I received that forgiveness and the apology that I'd been waiting for my whole life. So it was just beautiful. So I just wanted, but I do not want to compare the two traumas because they're very different and not comparable.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, Rabia.
Yeah, so it's like forgiveness is our own journey, our own path, regardless of what the other person says or not says, but facing the situation does help to move past your own emotional trauma that has cultivated. And so, Gigi, with my journey, and then I'm thinking of faith is like a big part of your path, right? And it has really helped you. For me, now I am a person where I do have a lot of trust and faith, and I have a lot of faith, but it was a struggle having that faith because I've had my own issues with faith, coming from a very strict religious environment. It was felt more like a burden or a duty rather than something I felt really inside of me. And when you say that giving it to him and listening, and he said this and he said that, tell us a little bit more about how that is in these situations where you've gone through so much, yet you are able to hear, you're able to still keep that control over yourself and that awareness. Tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Yes, ma'am. Great question. And thank you for sharing that as well, in regards to your matter. Now, when we talk about allowing him to move, and it's really first and foremost, we have to understand whose we are. First and foremost, we're the children of God, and understand he's the creator of all things. And literally now, if we say, have you ever attempted to do something with your own direction? What has happened? Fill in the blank. What has
Yeah.
happened, right? Exactly. So yes, and I recall every moment going back to any time that I had not I attempted to do it my way, and God is like, no, 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 my child, I need you to bring it here, give it to me here, and it's completely opposite of when we attempt to do it on our own, right? Versus, and also too, he doesn't want us to stay. He doesn't want us to stay there. He doesn't want us to stay in the pain, and they say weeping may come for the night or for the moment, but joy comes in the morning. Joy comes in the morning. And so again, allowing yourself to feel those emotions. So going back to what I stated earlier, I allowed myself to feel those emotions, although they're not easy, the emotions that I'm going through now, but allowing myself to feel those emotions. I'm understanding now what's in front of me. I understand now the other brother is now, we're going to be in the same room, and literally letting God move and just understanding, okay, even the energy, I can feel the energy. And I was like, and again, that confirmation, understanding why God said, and remember, before I got in the room, he says, not time. It's not time. He says, it's not time. He's right here. We're not having the conversation. You're not having the conversation. But it was very clear in its face. Why? And so again, his timing. And I recall even after the individual, now us leaving the room and saying, okay, God, well, now what? And are we going to have coffee? Are we going to go out for coffee? Are we going to chat about it? How is this going? And literally listening to him, trust his timing, period. There's no if, and, or but, or questioning. Give it to him. When you give it to him, you give it to him fully.
That unwavering trust.
Yes.
Unwavering trust. I think that is so crucial. And you know what, we need a little bit of that, what you've got, Gigi, because not everyone has that. And but that we can all aspire, because if one of us can do it, all of us can do it. Having that trust that this is happening for me. It doesn't mean it didn't happen to me, but it's also happening for me. I deal with how it happened to me, but I allow myself to process and to trust the process. So I think that unwavering faith and belief and trust. I think trust is a huge word, trusting the process. Now that you trust the process, now that you've overcome so much, and you are like, you're the epitome, I believe, of resilience, because you stand so firm in your belief. I think that is that resilience piece, that overcoming with such clarity. Question is, now moving forward in your intimate relationships or in your future partner, how open are you to allowing someone come into your life, into that space that is that, that gray area, could have been a gray area. Now you have faith and you've moved on. Do you have the doors open to having a future partner and allowing someone else in?
Yes, ma'am. And I've just trusted the process. I've given it to him. And there is a beautiful soul in my life. He's my significant other. Bless his soul, meeting me where I am. But not just that, but understanding again what had happened, and literally asking before touching me at all, like, and just again meeting me where I am. I think he really understood. I think that level of understanding, and not just that, but his family's understanding as well. It's beautiful, beautiful. It's a blessing.
Amazing. So you were able to be met where you needed to be met. There was no rush. You felt safe, and there was safety, there was understanding, and you received all the pieces that were necessary for you to open yourself up for love and intimacy again.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
that's amazing. And so it's really amazing. So thank you so much. I am so honored that we've had this beautiful conversation with you. Is there anything like a closing message that you would like to leave our audience with that could just make that difference, may make that difference for someone?
Yes, keep the faith. Keep the faith. And if you've gone through a challenge, don't give up. Give your battles to him. Oftentimes we hear folks say, "Well, I'm not perfect. I have had all these challenges in my life, or I've done this, Lord knows what." Uh, but literally, I think this is it. I don't think God can forgive me for what I've done, or I don't think that I can give it to him. I think that it's so bad what I've done, I can't give it him. Yes, you can. He wants to meet you where you are. But not just that, if you're looking to build a relationship with him, continuing to listening to him, but not just that, read his words, continuously reading the Bible. So now I've read the Bible as a child and again as an adult. It is possible. You can do it. Uh, and again, keep the faith. Literally, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and trusting the process. Again, I'm grateful for my family, my friends, and the community. And again, just trusting the process and just allowing God, letting go and letting him. And oftentimes we hear in society, folks say, well, it's very difficult to that control piece, letting go and letting him, giving that control to him. And so again, we spoke about it earlier when we attempt to do it ourselves, fill in the blanks. What has happened versus, or when you have given it to him, what has happened? What has happened? And so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm only speaking from a place of experience and also observation. And so again, don't give up. Keep the faith and keep going no matter what. Keep going. Keep up the good fight. I believe in you.
I love that. Trust the process and let go of the control. So Gigi, please tell us as we wind down in this episode, what are all the beautiful things you're doing now? I know you're a motivational speaker, so please tell us all the great things you're doing. We saw the books that you raised earlier, but please tell us more.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So essentially, yes, so I do have the other books as well. So God First and Walk with Me, as well. And when we talk about the books, serving that way as well, but not just that, also through the podcast or through our events. So after everything that happened, God also led us to do the events. And so it started off with sexual assault and domestic violence topics I'm a survivor of, but he also let us host them on various subjects. I mean, that's just us listening to him and what he needs us to do here. We've done some on leadership, business, confidence, pregnancy, you name it. We have not stopped since. And we have events coming up in 2025. We have our annual leadership conference, global leadership conference, global warriors conference. That's our third in-person event, and that's our in-person event of the year. And then we also have the Global Domestic Violence Conference. That's our 6th annual, and the 6th annual Global Breast Cancer Conference. And literally just letting go and letting him and meeting people where they are. And my word of the year is serve. It's been the same every year. If you're listening into this, put in the chat, what's your word of the year is my question to you.
So great having you, Gigi. Thank you so much.
Amazing. And we'll put your social media handles and where people can contact you in the description of this episode. Thank you again so much, my dear friend Gigi. It's been an honor to have you and Sana. It's that time of our episode.
Yep. We're two Desi girls.
Reinventing cultural norms.
With love.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Gigi.
Welcome. God bless.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Please rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow the Rabia and Sana Show on social medias.
Remember, you can watch the video version on YouTube, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.
If you want life coaching services, or you are reinventing cultural norms for yourself and think you would be a great guest and want to be on our show, please email contact@therabiaandsanashow.com.
And be sure to check out our next episode. See you next time.
See you next time.